Hey guys, Chad Hoover, Kayak Bass and TV. So, if you're like me and you hate to be inside, that'll explain why I'm sitting outside doing my next segment. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some tips and tactics that I'm going to call my backyard breakdown series. I'm going to break it down for you, but I'm going to do it in the backyard because I hate being inside unless I absolutely have to. And, so one of the things that we're all trying to do is we're trying to save money. All of us are on a budget, regardless of how much money you make. You don't want to just throw money away. And with us as fishermen, tearing up plastics and throwing them in the water, which you shouldn't do, you should be taking them home with you, which is why this next tip is as good as it is it saves money and it's good for the fish and good for the environment. So, soft plastics. We all spend a lot of money on soft plastics. And for me, I think every successful fisherman is a pretty good breakdown of this general rule of thumb. It's about 60% skill, about 30% preparation, and about 10% luck. Now, I think that when you don't have skill, you're more dependent on preparation and luck. When you don't have preparation or skill, you're completely dependent upon luck. So with that 60-30-10 rule, the more you put into your knowledge bank, the more you're in the skill and the knowledge side. The more you put in your preparation side, the less you're leaving to luck. And so the more you can learn and the more you can prepare yourself to where when you're out on the water you have your stuff together, I think the less you're relying on luck. Luck favors the prepared, as they would say. So in this segment, I'm going to show you, it's just a quick tip, I'm going to show you how to save some money on soft plastics, get more bang for your buck, actually be more effective with one of my presentations, and it's a real simple thing that I don't think a lot of people do. So here it is. Okay, so if you're like me, you definitely like to fish topwater frogs. Topwater frogs are one of the most exciting ways to catch a bass. And in the frog category, a lot of people throw toads, and toads are actually different from frogs. Toads are something that you buzz across the surface. It's really representative of a rodent. You very seldom see a frog, doing the Jesus walk across the surface real fast, like we do when we burn in a corporate pro frog or a Zoom horny toad, which is some of the more popular hooks out, or toads out there. And one of the more popular hooks is this kind right here with the little screw lock on it. And if you notice, that one's got a big old hunk of plastic out of it. And that big hunk of plastic is when the frog gets ripped off and it tears the nose up, as you can see right there. Now, most people take this and throw it in the water, which you shouldn't do, or they just throw it in the foot of their kayak, throw it in the bottom of the boat, and they throw it away later. Let me tell you what you should do instead. You should take this frog, whether it's this kind, whether it's the culprit pro frog, or whether it's a black one, and you should turn it into a jig trailer. You see that right there? That is a 3/4 ounce jig that I've added the back of a Zoom horny toad to. It gives it a little bit more action with the legs fluttering as it's going to the bottom. It gives it a little more bulk so that when the fish picks it up, it feels more real. And it just gives it a broader profile on the water. So when you're swimming it, it looks like a bait fish. When it's crawling along the bottom, it looks like a big crawfish getting ready to go in the ground or just coming out of the ground in the spring. And so that right there, that little tip, that little trick has put more big bass in the boat for me than probably any other time. If you saw the bass tails where I was putting it to Easton Corbin, we're fishing side by side. He had the same jig tied on as I did, but I had that frog trailer on. Gave it a little more bulk, gave it a salt taste, made it real, made it feel good, and that bass held on to it longer. So lure retention is a big thing for setting the hook. Let me show you exactly how I do this. Super simple. It's going to save you a lot of money in the long run, and it's going to make your jig fishing that much more successful. So I like to do this two different ways. The first way that I do it is I carry a big Ziploc bag with all of my toads in it. And as I catch fish and tear up my baits, as you can see there, all of my old frogs are in the bottom of the Ziploc bag. The other way that I do it is I'll take two bags of plastics, and I'll combine all the frogs into one bag. As I tear the frogs up, I'll put them into the other bag, which I mark jig trailer, or put a little JT on there and circle it. That lets me know that these frogs have already been used. I either keep them in the pocket of my PFD, or I just throw them back in my tackle box, and then when I get home, I can do what I'm about to show you. It's real simple. Just take the frog, line it up with your favorite jig, decide where you want the hook to come out, take a pocket knife and cut the head off, and you end up with your frog looking like this right here. So the head's cut off. Now you take that, put that on your jig as a trailer. It adds bulk, it adds realism, it adds vibration as the legs are fluttering through the water, and it's guaranteed to catch you more bass and make your jig fishing that much more effective. And it's a side benefit, not something that I really tout, but it also reduces hookups and hangups and snags, not hookups, hangups and snags when you're fishing these toads hooked up onto a jig through big treetops. Okay, so let me just show you exactly how this whole thing works. And this can be used whether you're using a standard jig like this, you know, various sizes, different colors, doesn't matter. And you can even use these jig heads that you can screw your frogs onto once you cut that head off and slide it down and make it marry up with the size of that football head. You can also create a pretty cool little swim jig with that frog on there. But we're gonna focus on turning these things into jig trailers. And as you can see on this one right here, really all I did was just fold the skirt back, thread that frog onto there, mash it down so the barb gets on there. Real simple. But what I do is I take my jigs and I actually mark them off on the table. And I actually got a new table so I could show you guys how to do this, because my other table was just completely marked up. So really simply, you just take the size jig that you want to use. We'll start with this 3/4 ounce jig. You basically set that on the table and line your frog up and pick where you want the hook to come out. Once I pick where I want the hook to come out, I lay that with the transition, and then I just simply on the table make my mark where I want the frog to be cut. And that allows me to cut these frogs consistent, and I can make a bag of them, and I can even mark them JT 3-4, JT 1-2, JT 3-1-6. That allows me to set my frog trailers up to perfectly work. Now, you can't just bite the nose off and do that kind of thing out on the water or cut it with your pocket knife, but this really allows me to be prepared, have my ducks in a row. And with me specifically fishing from a kayak and space being a limited factor, I like to actually have these things ready to go. And then what I can do is I can line that frog up where I want my hook to come out, line it up right there where is my mark where the collar is going to end, and take that and just simply take that knife and force it through it, cut that head off. I'm going to put that in my bag. Now, I'll build up several of these, and then let's say I want to make it a different size. I just take that, line it up where I want the hook to come out, I actually do it on the other side, use my mark, cut the head off, and now I'm creating Zoom horny toad trailers. Now, you want to save these heads because you can use these heads for all different kind of things, and I'll show you a completely different tip later on some of the things that I actually use these heads for. Now, realistically, it's super simple. You just take this jig trailer that you've made, take your jig head, fold the skirt forward, grab the weed guard and just push it out of the way, and then you just want to thread it onto the hook, keeping it centered so that it doesn't run crooked. And then what I like to do is turn it over and grab the spot where I want my hook to come out and force it past the tip of my finger, knowing that I'm going to get it to come out exactly where I want it to. Force it forward. And I'm doing these in 2 different colors. I really like to match my jigs up, but I'm doing this in 2 different colors to show you the contrast. Now, an additional benefit to this is once I shake it back down, it actually makes the jig collar, it makes a collar, which makes the jig skirt stand out a little more. So when this thing hits the bottom and it's just sitting there with that skirt standing out a little more, it makes it that much more active. I like to use these with round rubber skirts, but I also like to use them with these flat silicone skirts when I want a little less bulk from the skirt and create the bulk with my soft plastics. So get that hook to come out right there, spread your weed guard out, tie this thing on, and go out and catch more fish. That is basically saving money with soft plastics by using your frogs as jig trailers. Now, you can do this exact same thing by taking your Senkos and doing what I do here. Carry your good Senkos in a box, carry your bad Senkos in a bag, and when you tear the nose out, you can turn around and use these as your Wacky Rig Senkos, because you don't worry about the ends being torn up because you're going to Wacky Rig it. So save money on soft plastics by figuring out dual purpose uses of your soft plastics. You'll save more money and you'll catch more fish. Well guys, that's it for my backyard breakdown for saving money on soft plastics and how to take a soft plastic toad and turn it into a jig trailer, which will make your jig fishing that much more effective. Get out there, spend some time learning. There's no better substitute, not watching us on YouTube, not asking questions, not talking to your buddies, than the tow factor, and that's time on the water. So take these tips, take these tactics, share them with your friends. You know, definitely take them on board to give you something to do in the wintertime in the garage, something to think about at work. But when you get off work, hit the water. There's no better teacher out there than time on the water. So get learned up by getting out there and doing it. Thanks for commenting on all the videos in the past. Please comment below. Please like the video and do me a favor and subscribe. Turn the channel over to your friends. Tell them to subscribe. I'm going to keep cranking these videos out. If you got a specific question that you haven't seen me cover, you know, ask it. I'll add it to the list. We got a lot of tips, tactics, techniques, gear reviews, and a whole bunch of cool stuff coming. Don't forget about the giveaways. So make sure you subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I got some more coming right behind it.